Well, guess what? We are live. Let me take these off. So bear with me as I kind of sort through my voice today. It's been a really interesting 2 weeks, just in terms of like catching up with my health, man. It has been a real commitment. Let's put it that way, an absolute commitment. And it started about 2 weeks ago when I came down with something and was just absolutely flattened. And then it's like, okay, well, what happens next? So what happens next is I wind up going to my functional medicine doctor, and he runs these tests on me, and he says, "Oh, you have AFib." I'm like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, there's this thing that goes on in your heart, and you've got this one little thing that kind of bleeps in and out of time with everything else that is more syncopated. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what do you do about that? I said, well, we start you off on a probably a light beta blocker. Now listen, I'm no Linus Pauling, but I know what the fucking beta blocker is. And I don't really have a lot of interest in beta blockers, let me tell you, right? So then you get into this whole idea of like, well, what is afibrillation? How does it affect you? What are the causes? What do they do to treat it? So I've been in this kind of deep dive around trying to figure out how to not take beta blockers. Okay. So of course, some of you are well aware of this stuff. To me, this is like all new territory. And one of the other things that they recommend is something called an ablation. And an ablation is when they take like a catheter deal, right? And they run it up into your heart. And they try and find that little thing that's like, zapping, tweaking. And then they try to hit it, right? And knock it out. And by the way, even if you have an ablation, doesn't mean that you are no longer susceptible to taking beta blockers, Coumadin, all these other wonderful concoctions that they've got lined up for you. Well, why don't we dial this back, and then we'll add this, and it's like I've got fucking no interest in maybe if the ablation is like the last, I don't know, last chance in the highway. So of course, I am very curious. I am curious what else is out there that maybe I could use and figure out that there's a different way, right? There's a different way of dealing with it. And when you get into that, it's all very systemic. It gets into like kidney function, sleep apnea, all these things that hypertension, they're all part of the same. It's like a mafia. It's like this malady mafia. And so you have to figure out how to deal with at least one of them so that the others can sort of self-regulate. And they talk about diet. And, and what's crazy too is that they're like, I watch all these videos, and one of the videos is, oh, don't drink coffee. Don't ever drink coffee. And then I see this other video. Studies are coming out that show that a cup of coffee a day might actually be good for afibrillation. I mean, this is the world of science that we've inherited. And by the way, an ablation procedure, just to let you know, if you haven't really looked into it, an ablation procedure is only about 50% effective Like sometimes people will have 3 ablation procedures just to make sure they get that right. And there's no guarantee, believe it or not, that the AFib will not come back. And I've been into studying this now for 48 hours. And these are all the things that I'm learning. Now, because I am somebody who is very curious, I'm like, well, what other things are out there that maybe they're kind of overlooking? So I did a search on Chinese herbs for AFib. And just like the Mukhtavadi, which this Mukhtavadi stuff will not cure your high blood pressure, but it will lower it. Okay. And so isn't that what we want? Just like less stress on our organs. And so who cares? Who cares if it cures it? Just lower it so the rest of the body can kind of, be more of a parasympathetic relationship. So I looked up AFib in Chinese medicine. And guess what I found? I found this stuff right here. And you're probably going, well, what the fuck is that? What is this? If I had to read Chinese, I couldn't tell you. Because there's not one character in here that isn't Chinese. But what this is called, it's called Kelly, Kelli, Wei Jing. Kelly Wei Jing. So I looked it up and I found a peer-reviewed paper on it. And all these other people have done research on this Kelly Wei Jing. Like there's like lots of scientific research on it, and not just coming from China. So this box cost me $15, and I bought 3 of them just to see how it worked. Now I'm supposed to take one of these packets 3 times a day. And so I've added it to juice. It was fine. I kind of put some warm water, mix it up like a tea. It was fine. It doesn't taste bad. But I will let you know how this goes, because I was actually blown away by this peer-reviewed paper on this thing. And it's like, if I can manage it with a box of something that looks like this. It's got even, look, you can see we got a little heart thing there. See that? You're telling you right there. That's the symbol right there that you're looking at. Right there. Chinese medicine can be a slippery slope. Well, Sigurd, I know that you have some experience in that realm. It's a slope I'm willing to slip on for a while. So there you go. Let's see. Yes, I will be in the New York, New Jersey area, and that's going to be taking place on Sunday, the 7th. And we have a posting on Locals. Robin Dan has found a really nice kind of Frenchy style cafe, the Left Bank, that we can meet at noon, hang out, and get sophisticated, have a kind of Dorothy Parker round table style conversation in New York. So I will be traveling. Let me show you the map here. I will be traveling starting, let's see, 2 Fridays from now. So let's do this. And we do have a show to get into today, by the way. We'll just get this business stuff out of the way first. I was listening to some Robin Trower before the show. Very good. Very good. Underrated. All right. So let's pull this up. This is a good map right here. High resolution, baby. We like that high resolution. Okay, so I will be. I'll show you. All right, so this is basically the highway I'll be taking right here on the way out. So my first stop is going to be here in Arkansas to see my. Well, I got to say hi to Liddy Lou along the way, and then right here we'll be up in Arkansas. So the Sunday night, which is the what day is that? Let's see, Sunday night. That's going to be the 31st. So this is for all you workaday people. That'll be like your Saturday night because Monday's Labor Day. So on Sunday night, I will be in Nashville for some kind of a gathering or meetup. If you want to meet at a restaurant or hang out at Jason Whitlock's house, we can do that. So that'll be on the 31st. And then I'm probably going to make a couple stops along the way here. Maybe, I think somewhere like, I don't know. Because I know there's some people up in North Carolina that want to hang out, but I don't want to get too far off the beaten path because I need to be up here in this part of New York by the, well, what day is that? By the 3rd, right? By the 3rd. So I have some latitude to meet up along here, but not a ton, right? So probably leave Tennessee, Nashville on the 1st, and maybe have one more sort of kind of meet up, connect up. And Frank's Jamboree starts on the 5th. So I actually have until the 4th. So basically a couple days long here. So I'm open to doing another meetup or two, but I don't want to get too far off the highway. Like I don't want to go too deep into this area. So I don't know, Winston, Salem, someplace like that. Anyway, so I'll be up here at Frank's Jamboree from the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then on the 7th, right, I believe, let's check here. Yeah, so the 7th, that's a Sunday, and that's where we'll have our meetup in New York City with Robin. So there's some opportunities to connect here along the way. And then on the way back, it's going to be pretty straightforward, although my route will take me through this part of the country and then down again. So there you go. That's going to be that'll be the tour. And I don't know if anybody's going to Frank's event or not, but I'm not even quite sure what to expect. I'm sure it'll be funny, wild, anarchic, loud. I get loud with the jamboree. Anyway, that's the plan, and I'll be on locals today. All right, who else do we have here? Let's see. Yeah, you got the Bridge Expo. That's coming up with David. Please check out Wegmans. I've been to a Wegmans. I've been there. I've been to many supermarkets across this great nation of ours. And Wegmans is one of them. Flight of the Phoenix was a great, great movie. There were two of them. The first one was much better. Well, Nashville. So, yeah, I'm going to be in Nashville on the 1st. Where that's to be determined, right? Usually, some kind of a public place it's fine. A public meeting. I mean, a lot of it depends on the weather too. You know, but I think I don't know. I'm leaving from Arkansas. I think a Saturday afternoon, so I'll probably pull into Nashville on Saturday night. But it feels like maybe we could do like a Sunday brunch or something in Nashville. That'd be kind of fun. All right, who else do we have here? Yeah, well, cool. I'll be on locals today, and we can chat more about it. All right, why don't we do this? Let me do a little True Hemp Science. By the way, I ran out of the sleep gummies, and the other night, boy, could I have used those sleep gummies? Because they just would have been a tonic for the troops as the Boomtown Rats. I actually owned a Boomtown Rats record. I had the first Boomtown Rats record. I'm not sure what to think of them now. I'm not sure what to think of Bob Geldof, except that he might be multiple shades of evil. All right, so here you go, True Hemp Science. Look, you can look like this person. Look at these guys. They're biking. They're having a great time. The solo hiker, Blistopia. Look at this guy. He's just allowing nature and the world come to him. And your pets, they deserve the best too. So this is True Hemp Science. And if you don't know the drill already, all you got to do is spend $150 or more. You get the free shipping, 30-day money-back guarantee, third-party lab tested. This is the real deal. And if you spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS and you will get the goodie bag. And the goodie bag is the deal. It's like your order within the order. There is an interesting one here. I had tried CBD in the past. I had no clue what to look for or how to learn what my body wants or does not want. So I stopped seeking it out anywhere until I met Chris at a local market days in Green, Texas. Love these reliable, clean products you can trust. True Hemp Science is an amazing company with tons of knowledge that both Chris and Michelle are always willing to share. Couldn't agree with that more. So there you go, truehempscience.com. The sponsor of this show, along with me, yours truly, Robert Phoenix, your local international. I guess I'm international. I'm more international than I'm local. If people in this area found out I was an astrologer, they probably would have tossed me in the river while it was at its highest level. And they would have called it a baptism. Y'all want to be born again? You want to be born again, boy? Well, here's your chance, Mr. Astrologer. Just jump in on that river. And if you're meant to live and be saved, well, it'll be God's will now, won't it? That's one way of doing it. Definitely one way of doing it. Okay. So here we go. This is going to be kind of a two-part show. Today, what I'm going to talk about is more of what I don't want to, secular, is that the right word? It'll be more of like sort of data, uh, factual knowledge, pattern recognition, kind of seeing where things are going, right? We're gonna talk about it from that perspective today. On Sunday night, I'm going to bring the astrology in, and the astrology will be literally the battering ram for the point here that I want to bring home. And let me preface this by putting out a few disclaimers in some ways. First of all, I am not complaining, right? I'm not complaining about the state of the world. I'm not complaining about the state of my health. I'm not complaining about the state of life in general. I still think by and large, we have it pretty good here, and it could be a hell of a lot worse. And I freely admit that. And there are plenty of things to be grateful for. And trust me, I understand that. I get that. I'm grateful for all of you who show up here. No matter how many of you do show up, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does in some ways, but it sorry, being a little funny. But I'm grateful for it. I get to have this experience. I get to share my ideas. I get to talk about things. And by the way, I just have to say, I usually talk about things sometimes a year, 2 years, 3 years in advance of other people. And it's always interesting watching other people kind of get caught up. And then those people getting like accolades or have you heard what this person had to say? Well, it's probably a pretty good chance I've already talked about it. If not more than once, if not once, at least more than once or twice or 3 times. So, but I am grateful for the medium for sure for now. And I'm grateful for the fact that you do show up, and thank you. I appreciate that. And whatever your support is, whether it's a cup of coffee or just being here or commenting on the show, again, I am grateful. So I just need to be very, very clear. I am not here to have a pity party. I'm not here to say, this is, completely fucked up and irretrievable, only partially. No, I am here to say that, I am grateful. I am grateful for life. Okay, now I get to take a dump. One of the things that has become disturbing in some ways. Now you have to go back. Let's do this. Let's go back and sort of look at where we came from, because I think that's really important to set the stage. And I forget who I was talking with sometime last week. I forget who I was talking with, but it was, if you looked at what was going on during Biden, peak Biden, but even more so, I would say peak Trump. If you want to use 2016 to 2020 as kind of peak Trump, those 8 years, the American people were forced to deal with a type of insurgency that we had never seen before. And we've been around a while, right? Like some of us can remember the 1960s. Yes, I can. I was young, but I can remember the 60s. And the overriding message of the 1960s was make love, not war. Right? That was a really big theme during the 60s. It was, let's choose a different path. And the only time violence entered into the social theater was in 1968, when the Weather Underground basically overthrew SDS and ran an underground terror program for roughly the next 6 or 7 years. They eventually turned themselves in the 1970s. So you have that. And then for a brief period of time, you have this Black Panther, Black Power movement, right? That is like Oakland, California, San Francisco, Chicago, Fred Hampton. So those things were there, right? And the sort of the backdrop of radical leftist communism was kind of in the air a little bit, right? It was a type of America that most Americans did not recognize at that time. Like if you were, let's say, in your 50s, and it was in the late 60s, you didn't really know what you were looking at, right? It was like you were living on a different planet, completely different world. And all your TV shows that you watched that reflected kind of your values and your environment, they were intact until about 1967, 1968. And this is when they have what's called the Great Purge. And I've talked about this before, but the Great Purge is probably one of the most important things that happened in the United States in terms of a culture war and a culture change. So the Great Purge was managed by a guy by the name of Brandon Tartikoff. And he was a TV executive. And he worked at both NBC and CBS at various times. But there were a number of shows that were incredibly successful during that 1966, 67 period. The ratings were through the roof. I mean, think about it. TV, radio, and newspapers were the platforms of distribution. So these shows were incredibly popular. Basically, there were 3 networks, and they had a captive audience. And the shows that were popular were shows like Bonanza, Gunsmoke, what else? The Beverly Hillbillies, The Wild Wild West, Petticoat Junction, Green Acres. There were these shows that were connected to some form of like Americana. The Red Skelton Show, which as a child I struggled to watch to see what the significance was. But those were the shows that were they were the popular populist shows. Now there was a whole other kind of wave of programming that was also popular, and it was all based on the spy genre, because James Bond was really big, and you had shows like I Spy, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and even Get Smart, which was a kind of a James Bond parody spoof with Don Knotts. So this was another layer of programming. The Wild Wild West was kind of like a Western meets James Bond. It was a brilliant show. So they have this thing called the Great Purge. And Brandon Tartikoff says, we don't care how successful these shows are. we don't care that Green Acres is always in the top 5 or Petticoat Junction is always in the top. We don't really care because we are about to change the cultural face of America. We are about to begin the revolution. And this is what happens with the Great Purge. All of those shows get canceled simultaneously. Do you know what that does to an entire group of people who, for no fault of their own, right? They're, oh, look what Aunt Bee's doing this weekend, right? Or this week, or I just love it when Andy and Opie go off on those little fishing trips and have those father-son talks. They just warm my heart, right? Like that world just goes away overnight. And it's replaced by shows that are completely alien to sort of the mass culture. So there's this very interesting displacement that happens. It's like all of a sudden, and this is a large group of people, you're just told you're irrelevant, that you don't count, you don't matter, forget about it. There's bigger fish to fry here. So there's a whole new wave of programming that starts to come in, and it's a wave of programming that is going to culturally change America and how we view our values in America in a really significant kind of way. So I'm not going to make a whole dissertation on this period of time, but I think it's important because it shows how people get set up for certain things and how we've been set up for this next phase. Now, those people, they were blindsided. It was just like, okay, your world's over. New world is here. So the type of programming that becomes popular in the wake of those shows going away are shows like Laugh-In, which to this day I don't think is a very funny show, but it's supposed to be hip and, you know, flower power and whatever. But Laugh-In's one of those shows. And then they have this, one of the first interreligious TV shows. And it was called When Bridget Meets Bernie, or When Bridget Met Bernie, or some shit like that. And it was Bridget, who was, I believe, Protestant, meets Bernie, who's a Jew, and they get married. So you have, you know, the kind of this forced, it's not forced, but it's like, it's a type of world that never existed before on television. It is the first openly you know, Goy meets boy sort of TV show. And then the parents are there. Of course, there's, you know, sets of parents and they're involved, and, you know, they have their own little misunderstandings and whatever. Meredith Baxter Birney, she actually married that guy. The guy's name was David Birney. They were actually married, and they were married. Maybe that's how they pulled it off. So this is just the beginning, right? They're starting to change the face of programming. They're bringing Norman Lear, Bud York in, and of course, you know, we get Archie Bunker, we get the Jeffersons, we get the Mary Tyler Moore Show, right? Single woman living in Minneapolis. She has a career. She doesn't really need a man. She'll date a man, but she doesn't need a man. Unlike her neighbor Rhoda, who needs a man, but can't date a man. Ironic, isn't it? So this new wave of programming comes in, and it literally, it's programming. That's what it's set up to do, right? It is literally instructing people. This is sort of the new model of living. These are the new people. These are so it's wild, right? It's in some ways it's okay. Like I love the Jeffersons. I thought that was a really funny show. Good Times. I loved Good Times. Who didn't love Good Times? I'll tell you, who didn't love Good Times. Florida. Esther Roll. She fucking hated Good Times. She hated Good Times because of Jimmy J.J. Walker. She never spoke to him. The entire time they were on the set, they did their lines. She never spoke to him. When when Dave's shooting was over, never spoke to him. Right? She was courteous, did the lines, but she didn't want anything to do with Jimmy J.J. Walker because she felt like it was her show. It was about her. And JJ became, how do I describe it? It was almost like he became a minstrel show, with Dynamite. They all started to hate him because he got all the funny lines. And John Amos, who played the father of JJ, had a bit of a different relationship with him. He did talk to him, although he wasn't always nice to him. There was a lot of animosity towards Jimmy. And, unfortunately for Jimmy, once the show was over, he was always JJ. He couldn't get any acting gigs. So he did a lot of stand-up comedy, and I guess he wound up with Ann Coulter. Happy ending, right? So, but this is a big part of what happens in America, and that people begin to become entrained. If you go back and you look at everything that's pre-Purge TV, I believe the programming is matching the demographic, right? They're not saying, hey, let's create all this kind of slightly post-agrarian Americana that most Americans can relate to, because we want to keep them in this idea that America is a good, wholesome, family, countrified place. Like, I don't think that was necessarily the idea behind the programming. They had the demographic, and they knew that the demographic responded to the programming, not vice versa. When the Great Purge comes, that all goes away. And essentially, what the Great Purge does is it sets up a new generational sort of title sequence, meaning that once you have the Mary Tyler Moore Show or Rhoda or All in the Family or whoever you throw into that mix, it's creating a wave of social change that will have a much more long-standing effect. Like, if I were to bring up the Mary Tyler Moore Show versus Petticoat Junction, how many people would say that Mary Tyler Moore was much more socially impactful, more important, and that they would remember it in general? Most people, right? Most people would say, hands down, 99.9%. But this is all about programming. And where this is all headed is in a similar kind of way. It's a very similar sort of, because what we're going through now politically is a version of Brandon Tartikoff's Purge, the Great Purge. So if we go back to, say, 2016, 2017, which is the beginning of like peak Trump, what were the things that drove most people nutty? It was the grievance culture. Everybody has something that they're pissed off about, whether it's getting their pronouns wrong, whether it's some form of, I don't know, phantom privilege, whether it's some form of racism that is so deep and so pervasive that you're not even aware of it because, well, you're white and you're just racist to begin with. So how can you become aware of your own racism? You can't, because it's embedded in you. It's like water recognizing that it's water or something along those lines. And we get the Robin DiAngelos of the world, and we're getting lectured left and right, and mostly left. We're getting lectured all the time. And this is all part of the programming. It's all part of the programming. And when we hit the summer of Floyd, I've talked about this before, but it's important to go over it again. We hit the summer of Floyd, and it's like it rained kerosene on the country, and somebody lit a fucking match. And that's really the boiling point, right? The summer of Floyd is like this massive boiling point, yet not massive enough so that people would have. The thing about the summer of Floyd is interesting, because it was totally organized and engineered, but they made sure that where these events took place were not areas where the people who were peacefully protesting would be at risk of having to deal with people that were through with them peacefully protesting. So it was very smart, well thought out in terms of region, people, place, etc. But it's a boiling point, right? And it's getting close. Like how far can they actually go to activate that program all the way? Meaning burn it all down. Trump's taken away in handcuffs. There's the left's version of tribunals and struggle sessions and all the things. Like, how far could they actually go in order to make that happen? And I think there were a lot of people where that was really on their minds, because the struggle sessions were real. You know, when the Me Too thing was happening, some of which was valid, some of which wasn't. Those are struggle sessions. Those, if you don't know what a struggle session is, it goes back to communist China. And it's a session where if you're somebody who is labeled a dissenter, that you have to sit in front of a tribunal and defend your position. And usually it's, well, not usually, it's always indefensible, right? So eventually you have to admit that you were wrong, that the causes that you believed in, these bizarre notions like freedom and responsibility and self-determination, that those are all, very dangerous to the state. And so you have to disavow all of that. But in order to get there, you have to struggle. Like, you just can't say, yep, where's the paper? Sign me up. I'm good, man. I'll be whoever you want me to be. You don't get off that easy. Anyway, we saw some of these struggle sessions going, people apologizing for certain things. I really apologize for the comment that I made. And I know I hurt a lot of people, and it was very insensitive. And I've decided to take some time out and really, explore that part of me that so fervently believes that. And I want to just thank everybody in advance for allowing me the space, and we're just like, no, fuck you. You're done. You're done. You should never have apologized. You should never have done any of that. You just admitted to everything. You're screwed. How many times have we heard that? over like the last 10 years? A lot. So we're seeing this, right? We're seeing these things happen. And as it's happening, the people who are in charge of making sure that you fall into this new line of political correctness and just the insanity that goes along with it, they keep looking weirder and weirder until we get to that guy who winds up being like number 2 at the nuclear waste organization. You know, the bald-headed guy who showed up with his boyfriend dressed in a latex dog suit. That guy, remember him? Or do you remember good old Rachel Cohen, who was second in command as the whatchamacallit, I always forget the name, like the doctor in chief, right? Like we have somebody who's a transgender person, right? Was it the general physician general or whatever, right? Like number 2. Of course, number 1 had to be a guy from India. That's a different story. So the cast of characters keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder. Am I right? Like it just keeps getting stranger. And as you look at this, or you know, just in the rearview mirror, there's no fucking way that they could have kept going in that direction and have that world be an effective organizing principle. There's no way. I mean, just take a step back and look at it. Rachel Cohen, really? And I know it's the slow boil with the frog and everything. And I know that for a lot of people, it was very similar to the Great Purge, where all of a sudden all your favorite programs just go away and you're watching these TV shows about people, what, they live in New York, what, he's a Jew? She's, what the fuck is this? Where did Jed and Jethro go? Right? It was kind of like that, kind of waking up into that and thinking, where are we? What happened to this place? Who's really in charge? And now that I sit here and think about that, because I started to reflect, like, there was no way that any of that was sustainable at all. It was not sustainable, because in order for it to be sustainable, it would have to get weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder. And we were pretty close to the apex of weird, let me tell you. You get Sam Brinton stealing luggage from airports because he's desperately trying to find high-end items to accessorize. Like, that's pretty fucking weird. When you get a so-called president who can't even complete a fucking sentence, that's pretty weird. When you get a vice president who does nothing but cackle and speak in unintelligible circles, that's pretty fucking weird, right? When she gets a vice president candidate like Tim Walz, who is just an absolute super creep, that's pretty fucking weird. And even somebody like John Fetterman, who gets elected, like, that's weird. How much more latitude for weirdness do we have in that space? And Not a lot. I mean, we're really starting to hit peak weird. And if you think that peak weird is something that you can manage over a period of time and get people to fall in line, good luck with that. It's not going to work. Right. So we reach this point with all these really strange characters and getting stranger by the moment. And what it did is it really elevated people's outrage. First shock, then outrage. Now let's talk about the border. So you have this thing with the border and all these people coming through the border. And, and again, there's anything that anyone can do about it. Or even our great Greg Abbott, who tried to put up his barbed wire or whatever, he wasn't all that successful. Should have been, could have been, but he wasn't. So now you have all these people coming in the country, and we've got the stories of they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating again, adding to this whole level of peak weird and peak insanity. And by the way, I'm not saying that they aren't eating the cats or the dogs. If I lived in New Haiti, I'd make sure I had an indoor cat. That's for damn sure. Anyway, and look, I met some Haitian people, and some of them are cool, but very different kind of dietary requirements. But again, it's all peak weird. It's all peak weird. And you can't run a civilization on peak weird. You can do it for a while, and you can have an intended effect. And the intended effect of peak weird was for people to become sick of it all. Right? I'm sick of these people telling me how to think, how to speak, what's politically correct, not politically correct. I'm sick of having to just automatically embrace these people that just moved next door and they don't speak the same language I do. They have a fondness for curry, whatever, right? Like this is what part of the program has been about. It's been about agitation and getting people upset and frustrated to the point where someone is going to come along and take care of business and do something to change all that. And that's where we begin this part of our story, right? But in order to understand this part of the story, we have to understand how people got inducted into this peak weird and the inability to do anything about any of it, that their worlds were turned upside down. And there's a lot more that goes along with it too. I mean, I left COVID out, and that's a huge, huge part of the story. Not directly, but it's a huge part of the story. So we have all these people that became super incensed, and they just want justice. Here we are, Mars and Libra, they want justice. Okay. Let's fast forward now. And Donald Trump and the Trump administration is now going to take over law enforcement inside of Washington, D.C., which they have the ability to do. Out of all the cities in the U.S., it's the one city where they can deploy state troopers, National Guard. Hell, I think they could even bring the Army in if they wanted to. So all of a sudden, Trump decides that he's got to clean up the streets of DC. All of a sudden, well, they probably need cleaning up. I mean, there's at least 100 cities in America that need cleaning up. We all know this. And again, that's been part of the problem too, right? It's like, here, we'll just let them sleep and shit and go into some sort of drug spiral wherever they want. Right? That's all part. That's all about getting people incensed. Right? There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. We just want a clean place. Back in. We want the America that we want. We want America to be great again. That's what we want. And this was not part of the deal. And that's, it was all part of the programming, all part of the, there's nothing we can do about it. But now they're singing a bit of a different tune. And do I think America's streets should be clean and not have to deal with the homeless crisis? Sure. 100%. There are ways of dealing with it, and then there are ways of dealing with it. So what Trump is going to do now is he is going to use the troops in DC in order to, number one, assert curfews, number two, arrest people if they're on the street, and number three, if you're living on the street, you're going to be scooped up and I don't know where you're going to go. This is all a test run. It is all a test run. Because if they can pull this off in Washington, D.C., which they can, theoretically, they can, because of the president's status with the District of Columbia, et cetera, they'll use all the data, they'll use all the metrics and everything that they've scraped, and then they will apply it to different cities across America. And I'll tell you how they're going to do it. They're going to do it under the auspices of ICE. And because this is the one thing, this is like almost beyond any other issue that most Americans agree upon, which is the quote unquote migration piece. And you saw what happened in LA. You saw how people became, and I'm not talking about the Reconquistas, but the people that, like, I don't care. I don't care if they're plucking strawberries. I don't care if they're making our bacon drizzled figs in the kitchen. Just deport them all. Right? This is if you're going to deport one person, deport them all, one law for all. Like you were hearing this, right? You were hearing this from all these different people. And if you're looking at it from just a law perspective, it makes total sense. Why should there be different laws for different people? If you came here 3 months ago, or you came here 13 years ago, you still came here illegally. I mean, that's the mindset, right? So along the way, of course, Trump had a conversation with all the various hotel owners, who, of course, whom he's close to, and construction sites. And, we're going to leave those people alone. But still, this idea that we had this massive wave of people that came into this country during the Biden era, there are people that want these people gone. Period. End of story. That's probably, in many ways, the number one issue for most Americans is unchecked migration. And the migrants that are here that are soaking up the services, which they are. Okay. So if you have ICE ice, as it is right now, is less limited than it was. During the Obama era, ice was almost in total handcuffs. It couldn't do very much. What they're doing now is they're starting to allow ice to do a lot more than ice used to be able to do. And my feeling is that they're going to increase the numbers of ICE officers significantly. And it will become almost an army unto itself. That this is my thoughts around it. Because when you get into ICE and the whole world around ICE, they operate under very different circumstances than, say, normal law enforcement. So with ICE, you can do no-knock raids. Like if you think that who's ever behind that door is an illegal or somebody that needs to be put on a plane somewhere, you don't need a warrant. You don't need a warrant. You don't need to do anything except knock the door down and make arrests, right? So we're headed into a period of, I think this is tricky. We're headed into a very tricky time. And there are certain things that you can see culturally. Like, again, sort of the Overton window is moving. Give me 1 second here. So when you see somebody like Sydney Sweeney and her jeans out, and it's like a play on jeans, Jeans, Genes. Right? When you see that, and it's like, oh, look at that. It's a white girl, and she's promoting jeans, and she's shapely and curvy, and she's the it girl, right? She's not the only one. Like Sophie Cunningham, who plays for the Indiana Fever, who's blonde, all-American girl, knows karate, starts doing Arby's ads called White Girl Summer, right? There's this cultural shift that's taking place. And the cultural shift is a 180, just like we had this 180 during the Purge, where it was Jed Clampett and Andy Griffith and Petticoat Junction, to this new, weird, modern, multicultural, diverse, independent sort of woman world. It's like night and day. And we're going through another one of these cultural shifts. And it's in some ways, it's a lot like a replaying of the Purge, but from a different perspective. And what have we seen over the last 3 weeks? Number one, Stephen Colbert, bye-bye, out the door, right? You're on the clock. Number two, The View taking a hiatus. Now, The View supposedly always takes hiatuses, but we'll see if The View comes back. Howard Stern, no longer on Sirius XM. Do you see where this is going? We're starting to see this shift, and it has very similar overtones to the Great Purge from the 1960s, but in a reverse fashion. Now, some of this is organic and some of this is planned. Some of this is part of a kind of greater zeitgeist in order to bring the new era into consciousness or into conscious awareness. So if you can get people on board culturally with quote unquote being okay with being American, or quote unquote with okay with being white, right? Or being unabashedly conservative. And by the way, I think Nick Fuentes plays a role in this as well. Like, he is sort of the new Overton window, right? So he's all part of, and I have, I wouldn't say I have mixed feelings about Nick Fuentes. I think the things that he's bringing up are important. I think he does speak for a number of young men in his generation. And he's basically saying, again, obvious shit that had been said before, but not bundled up into this sort of moment in time. If you go back and you look at, I talked about this the other day, with Maury Povich or Jerry Springer or Phil Donahue, they would have versions of Nick Fuentes on their shows, except they were always kind of like creepy. They were always cast as these villainous white supremacists. And so going into watching the show, their ideas are already going to conform what you believe a white supremacist to be, no matter what kind of rational argument David Duke could make. Your mind was probably almost already made up, right? So Fuentes is kind of part of this. He's kind of part of this new sort of purge. And I'm not saying that the things he's bringing up are bad. It's like, it's about fucking time we started talking about these things. But to what end, right? Why now? Why is it also part of, in some ways, the Sydney Sweeney Jeans thing? Or why is it a part of White Girl Summer with Sophie Kine? And there's more. There's like, so Trump has decided to bring back the president's physical fitness test, which I think is good. We all had to take it when we were kids, but they, for whatever reason, they stopped doing it. So now he's got, I think, Nick Bosa, who is a hardcore MAGA guy, who's part of the president's physical fitness. So there's this shift that's happening, right? And it's intentional, and people are starting to get a bit of a social tension release. So when they see that Howard Stern is done, they're like, thank God, he's done, he's over. Thank God, Stephen Colbert is done. Oh man, those bitches on The View, man, I'm so glad they're gone, right? Some of this has to do with the planned demographic. Just like when they made that purge move, they knew that the baby boomers were the ones that were going to take over television. And by cutting out those shows, that they would have more potential eyeballs on the new shows than this other demographic who was kind of aging out. But there was also the social engineering aspect, which is, this is not going to be white bread America anymore. This is going to be an incredibly diverse America. We're going to show you how diverse it's going to be with all the different programming, right? Now we're headed back towards more of a monoculture. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is a bad thing, by the way, but I think it's a setup. I think it's a setup. I think that when people see these celebrities going down, Howard Stern, perfect. Like his time is going to come anyways. He's irrelevant. He's just told. Stephen Colbert was never funny. And you're going to see these people fall by the wayside. And when that happens, people are going to say that this is a cultural victory. Like we're winning. See. And that part is important because it reinforces the next part, right? And the next part is the part that becomes challenging to talk about. And how do I frame this? Dana White is a really close associate of Donald Trump. If you don't know who Dana White is, he runs UFC. Prior to his relationship with Dana White, Donald Trump was really close with Vince McMahon, who, in fact, he employs Linda McMahon in the Department of Education. So Dana White and Vince McMahon, they are entrepreneurs of a spectacle. And that spectacle has a lot to do with fighting, theatrics, things that are over the top and dramatic. And you have to have storylines in those worlds, whether it's wrestling or even with UFC, there's storylines, right? So it's interesting that Trump has employed these guys to some extent or are in his space. And in order for someone to be victorious or play the role of the hero or whatever, you have to have all these other things line up. You have to have the cutout bad guy, the cutout caricature, right? So that ultimately good triumphs over evil. And what we're seeing now are these little victories, right? Whether it's Howard Stern or Colbert, but it gets people's appetites wet. It's like, oh man, this is good. You know, it's sort of like I remember the first time I gave Jasper some organic cow blood. He loved it. Couldn't wait to get more. Right? It's kind of like that. People get a taste of blood in their mouths and they want more. And it feels to me like the crowd is being played. Right? They're being played. And it's like, oh, just shut the fuck up. You know, we've had all these other people telling us what to do, who to think. Just remember how bad it would have been under Harris. You know, like we get it. We totally get all that. But that's all part of the setup. That's all part of this release that people are really yearning for. Like they want that release. And so we're at this point where how far can Trump, Vance, how far can they push this Overton window? How far can they say, okay, yeah, we didn't like what Howard Stern was saying, but we certainly don't like what you're saying about Israel. And you get one warning around it. And after that, what's to prevent this new version of ICE to do something that's like a no-knock and get you the hell out. Because somebody, some group, some country doesn't like what you have to say about them. And if it's done, it's going to be interesting. If it's done under the auspice of removing undesirables, undesirables being people that are here without the legal means of being here, people will cheer it on. They will cheer it on. They'll be happy. Take them away. Take them away. Go ICE, right? And you'll get a couple of propaganda videos or something showing just how effective this program is. But at a certain point, the tide is going to turn. And it won't just be about illegal interlopers. It will be about people who disagree vehemently with the system. And that takes us into the whole realm of Palantir and Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and the program that they've rolled out with the CIA, which is a total immersion program in terms of surveillance, behavior prediction, predictive models, all of it. All of it. And that is being built in the background right now as we speak. Okay. So we've seen Trump now begin to move on DC. He keeps talking about reopening Alcatraz. That is symbolic. More than anything else, it is symbolic. And it's like, we are going to reopen. And now, whether he does it or not, it would take a couple of billion of dollars to get Alcatraz up and running. They don't really need it, but it's more symbolic than anything else, right? We're going to reopen the greatest prison that we ever created in order to keep inmates from escaping, right? That's really what the whole Alcatraz reanimation thing is about. It's more symbolic than an actual prison. But it feels like this is the direction that we're moving in. And it doesn't, and I know people are saying, can you just like appreciate things? Just appreciate the world. Yeah, I can. I can appreciate many things, right? But at the same time, I can also see what's going on here. And look, every single day, there are more and more people that are picking up the Nick Fuentes flame, and they are having discussions about not just Israel, not just Zionism, not just neocons, but Jewish power, which is related to all of it. Every single day now, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of more people picking up on this thread in this conversation. Now, do you think that the people who are on the other side of that conversation want that conversation to happen? No, they don't want it to happen. It's like, no, enough of this, enough of this anti-Semitic bullshit, right? But what are they going to do? You know, what are they going to do? How are they going to put the toothpaste back in the tube? They can't, it's out. And the numbers around people starting to talk about this are quite phenomenal. The only thing you can do is start to eliminate people. You take them away. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book. This is what Henry Kissinger told what's his name, Pinochet, to do. Allende, just to disappear those fuckers. You don't have to worry about them, right? If you think that they're subversive, just pick them up, tie them up in cement blocks, and throw them overboard. right? That was really the CIA's recommendation for dealing. Now, Latin America is a weird place because there's always some kind of a coup cooking. So whether it's socialist or communist or even far rightist, they've always had this background of the coup, the strongman, the corruption, the coup, the strongman, the corruption. It's like some kind of reincarnation cycle. But that was the plan. You get rid of the people that you don't like in the conversation that they're having that you don't approve of. And it feels to me like this is you can cue the Jaws theme here, because this is what it feels like. What's happening? That they're creating this environment where certain values are being rewarded again, right? Sydney Sweeney in the jeans, Sophie Cunningham, White Girl Summer, right? Nick Bosa. All these things are kind of being sort of given to the people in some ways. Like, here you go. This is the new purge. We're getting rid of that blue hair shit. The blue hair shit was never sustainable. Never. That was never sustainable. The more that I look at it in hindsight, it was a total limited hang. Now, if the American people were dumb enough to fall for that for an extended period of time, well, then guess what? They deserve it. But there was just no way that they could continue to have that. There was no way at all. So now we're on the other side of this, and people will get rewarded. They believe that they're going to be making real strides in the culture war. But underneath that, something else is being built, right? It's like, here, you can have a few bones and you can feel like you're relevant again, but something else is going on underneath. And that's where we're going to end today's show. Because on Sunday night, I'm going to bring the astrology into the conversation, and I'm going to show you what I believe is happening. And the next 3 years in this country is, if you think that America was in a battle for its soul over the last 8 years, just wait for the next 3 years. And the pernicious part of it all is that you may not even be aware of how much of a battle you're going to be in for the soul of America. That's going to be the part. That is the prestige moment, right? Where they pull off the magic trick and you don't even know it's happening, but it is, and it's happening right underneath your very nose. All right. Thanks for being here and allowing me to work through my afibrillation. I'm sorry, I have to laugh. I'm a fucking TV commercial now. So thank you. Mods, thanks for being here, doing what you do. Don't forget, we got this little roadie coming up here. I'm going to jump on locals afterwards. I'm just going to kind of plan things out. So if you want to go on locals, you want to connect, chat, whatever, I'll be there after the show. And that should do it. All right. Thanks for all your support. Really appreciate it. Don't forget True Hemp Science. They are the sponsor of the show. And you can always get me a cup of coffee if you like, if you enjoy the content. And I will be back on Sunday night, roaring like a lion, to bring the astrology into this, so you guys will see this from a 360-degree angle. All right? All right, take care. Treat each other well. Treat yourself well. And love to y'all. God bless. Bye for now.